Hi, this is Farrell. Welcome to Robot Todd comic, page 7 of issue 3. I did some reshuffling here. There's my thumbnail, my low-res thumbnail, but that was like the super teeny tiny thumbnail. And then you can see in the upper right-hand corner, I did another little thumbnail before I started penciling. I didn't record me doing that, but there's a better shot of it. And I wanted the first panel to just be a black square, black rectangle, like Robot Todd's waking up in the second panel here. And I redrew that fox several times. Like, I think I just tried making him up at first, which is always a bad idea. I was like, oh, I'll have him licking his paw on the first panel, and the last panel I'll have him licking Todd's face. So then I started looking up for reference and then tried drawing him licking his paw in the first panel, but then I couldn't get it to quite fit in there the way I wanted it to. So I ended up kind of scrapping that drawing, erased it several times, and just used reference for that one there. Both those foxes there in the first and the fourth panel are referenced from some thing I got off Google, some Corbis or Getty image or something. I don't know who took that picture, but thanks. I think I changed them enough too in the drawing. It's not a big deal if I, use someone else's hard work as reference, just because I don't really have access to foxes, that often. And so anyway, with that pose settled on, I think the last thing I drew was the first thing that I'm inking here is that raven. I spent maybe like 3 or 4 nights on the pencils. I figured it would be an easier page, and it kind of was. I mean, that first panel was, pretty basic, or at least the idea was that it was supposed to be pretty basic, the drawing. I inked this whole page with a brush. In the past, in the first couple issues, I've been pretty much inking with the Faber Castell Pitt pen, but I got kind of back in the swing of inking with a brush on those sept drawings that I just finished last month, rather. I did a Septober thing, and I'm going to put it, I already put it together as a book, and I'm just kind of waiting. Now, I'm going to start a crowdfunder as soon as I've done my next Patreon post, and we'll do a crowdfunder for that book over the next couple weeks. And hopefully we'll sell enough through the initial crowdfunder that I can pay for the print run and get it shipped out to comic book stores and stuff too later if you're not part of the initial crowdfunding thing. You can still pick it up at a comic book store. At least that's the idea. I'm going to put it out through Floating World Comics, and it's a local. I live in Portland, Oregon, in case you haven't seen any of these videos or didn't know that about me. And there's a comic book store here in town, Floating World Comics, a great comic. There's a bunch of great comic book stores in town, but that one does a lot of publishing, and they publish really cool, sort of, edgier stuff than what you'd see from like Marvel or DC or Image even, or seems like it's kind of more art comics and low runs of stuff, some genre stuff that they've published some of my work before too. So kind of run the gamut of super artsy stuff and kind of more like illustrative stuff like mine. And here I'm doing a rare thing, which I'm actually lettering with a brush. Like, it's just as I was inking this. You can see if you roll back the video a little bit, you can see I'm actually using the brush. It's like, I'll just go ahead and letter these. They're on there pretty, neat enough, I guess. It's not sloppy. Or if they were a little sloppier, I probably would have used a pen. But I just was like, it's like, well, as long as I'm inking all these lines, I could ink these letters pretty well with the brush. It doesn't look super consistent, but I personally don't think none of the pages look that consistent, but I think you can tell if you look at the whole thing that the same person did the whole thing, which is more important to me than anything. Well, not anything, but clarity is probably the first and foremost thing. I want people to be able to understand what they're looking at. Primarily, when you're reading a comic, I feel like it's that's the most crucial thing, the crucial element. The author, artist, creator, whatever. There's my cat interrupting me for the millionth time. I feel like the person making the thing, it's like they're I don't know if it's like responsible. I mean, it's like do make comics however you want, but if you want people to read and understand your comics, I feel like that's the main thing. Is like, oh, I should try to make these readable. So yeah, there's the inked page. That's pretty much level of inking that I do on these, and then before I switch to the paints, the watercolor and stuff. And it looks like I haven't even really erased the page that well here before I started painting it. I think I went through and actually cleaned up the letters and everything. That page looks a little more clean. But yeah, here I'm going in now. You can see I'm actually doing what I was talking about. I'm erasing everything here, all the stray lines and the stuff. I do leave a lot of the pencil lines on the page in certain areas just because I kind of like the way it looks. I feel like it gives it like a warmth rather than just the harshness of the black and white line. I like there to be a little bit of pencil lines here and there in certain areas. And here I'm actually going in with a watered down ink before I start using the watercolors in full. I will mix some of the Dr. Martin's ink. All the materials, by the way, in case you haven't seen one of these before, I list all the materials in the description. So if you look at the description, you can find links to the different stuff that I get and the books that I have and stuff. More on that later at the end of the video. But here, and I'm just using watercolor. You can't really see the watercolor palette, but it's a whole bean watercolor. It's just like one of those little portable palettes. I don't know how many colors, maybe like 20 colors in that one. And then the bigger palette that you see is a gouache palette. It's the Caran d'Ache is the name of that. So in that first panel, you can see I took a couple of pieces of paper and taped them down so to kind of mask off the rest of the page. Here I had this gray sort of, it wasn't quite black, it was a gray, light gray, medium gray, whatever, of that first panel. And I just was like looking at it, I was like, I kind of want it to feel more like static or something. So then I went with a toothbrush and added a bunch of black ink spatters, and then I did the opaque white and used the brush to give spatters. And I was like, oh, it looks pretty cool, I guess, there with it taped down. But after I untaped it, I just didn't, it felt like it was like too busy or something. It didn't really feel like how I wanted it to feel. And I was kind of regretting. I was like, oh man, I should have just left it all that sort of cloudy, milky gray that I had there first. It kind of felt like more like, oh, Todd's in this limbo, or he's in this like, cyberspace, or just, asleep or what have you. But I ended up taking a flat brush, which I didn't end up filming here because I'm getting towards the end here and I'm just kind of touching up certain areas, going over areas that I want darker values. But I ended up using a wide flat brush and kind of dipped it in the ink water and kind of brushed it until it was that, which just ends up just being black with some little bit of stuff on the edges. And there's the finished page. I think I touched up a couple things. I definitely messed with some stuff in Photoshop, cleaned up the edges in Photoshop, punched up the lettering a little bit, made it a little darker. But yeah, there's the page. Todd's all better now. Fox just came along, and they're going to go and try to find Sept, which is the other comic that I did, the little Sept comic, which will pick up. It ends right where this will pick up once he finds him in a few pages. There's all my other books, and I even added the Monster House Soap. And this is the only one that you could really order, I guess, or get. It's from Floating World Comics, 2020. It's all my daily drawings that I did in 2020. All the other ones are going to be out of print soon, so tell your retailer or whatever to get them. You also have a Patreon, and I just added a new tier. I kind of cleaned it up, and so I just have like 4 tiers now. But this is the $20 tier, and you get a copy of Delusional, and I'll draw and sign it for you if you want. But I'll send that to you the first month, and then if you stick around with the $20 a month thing, eventually you'll get a T-shirt, a mug, another T-shirt, and I think it's a sticker. I didn't put the picture of the sticker up here, but it's like a Robot Todd sticker. And that's the $20 tier over on my Patreon. I also have just a $2 a month tier. You still can look at 4 new pages every month. Thanks for watching. Bye.